Borka, Vengeance of the Rimshaw. As war continues to consume the lands of the Trollkin, Borka, Vengeance of the Rimshaw, rides atop his powerful northern bear, Arctos, like a savage chieftain of old, bringing hope to the beleaguered kin and swift death to his enemies. The years of conflict beside Madrak Ironhide forged Borka's lust for combat into something greater. Where once Borka strode into battle seeking only personal glory and thrill of crushing his enemies, he now sees the blows he lands as a vital part of the fight his people are waging for their very survival. Affirmed by the leaders of the kin, Borka revels in the combat more than ever, each blow fueled by a certainty that in following his own call to battle he serves his people in their greatest time of need. Following his near death at the Wormwall Mountains in a punishing duel against Cromac the Ravenous, Borka returned to his home Creel. There he restored ties to the matriarch of his Creel and was unexpectedly reunited with Arctos, a bear he had saved and befriended as a cub. Recognizing that his old friend still shared his enthusiasm for fighting, Borka took the beast as his own battle mount. The two have become inseparable, and the sight of the pair charging headlong into the enemy in a roaring storm of teeth, claw, and mace chills the marrow of any who faces them. Borka's time among his Creel, along with his recent brush with death, have brought a certain clarity to the shaman regarding his love of fighting. His connection to the powers over northern cold bestowed on him by Dunia has grown deeper, and in battle he can summon and wield the inexorable power of winter itself. Atop his bellowing mount, Borka has become as unstoppable as the winter avalanche, and this newfound mobility has only increased his audacity in battle. Borka is ever at the front of the charge, he and his battle group, avatars of winter's fury, but he is not heedless of the cost. Champions of his kith and Creel risk their lives alongside him. This knowledge leads Borka to be fiercer and more determined, since he understands the toll in blood should he fail. For this part, the Northkin are simply glad to have their champion back among them, even if they know he will only remain as long as there is foes to crush. So, that's what Borka needs, a polar bear that he can ride on top of. Because, might as well just add more, take him up to 11. And I feel like a lot of people have had near-death experiences with Cromac the Ravenous. Because Cromac was coming back for that axe from Madrak Ironhide, because apparently Cromac needed it more. But now Borka, with that new insight on what death could be, is now even more vicious and determined than he was before. But let's read over his Mark 3 to Mark 4 changes and see what fun abilities he gets with his new polar bear mount. And of course, we will start with his stat line. So I know for balancing stuff, privateerpress has changed up some of this, so you'll hear about what the weirdness is on this one. So his speed's a 7, of course. His magic attack is an 8, or is a 6. His mat's an 8, rat's a 5, defense is 14, armor 18. His actual amount of focus or fury he can get is 5, so that's what that is. And then his control is 12. Now, I imagine they increased his magical attack to 6 just because, well, if you have anything less than a 6, you're not really going to be hitting things very well, so I imagine that made sense in that route. The moves that he got for his abilities, he was given breakthrough like a lot of mounts are, so he doesn't have to, it's pretty much parry for Mark 3, but it's breakthrough, so he doesn't have to give up his attack when he moves past people. He still has tough, still has his immunity to cold, he still has Pathfinder, and he still has, he was given dual attack like most warcasters are that have multiple weapons, and he is still a cavalry model, so he still has all those abilities with him as well. His other abilities, he still has Attuned Spirit, so once per activation, he can cast an Animus from a War Beast without spending Fury. He has Defiant Rage, so if he is damaged, he gains +2 armor and +2 melee attack damage rolls for 1 round. He still has Field Marshal Northkin, so he gives models in his battle group Northkin model, and they gain resistance to cold, so if you're going up against another cold army, he's even better about that. And then because he's a mounted model, he has Reposition 3, which is great. And then his weapons are basically the same. He still has a Rat 5 range 8 bomb. It has a 2 AoE, POW 12 and 6, so he still got that. His trauma still does the same thing with his melee weapon. It is a mat 8, power 15, critical smite. Smite, slam D6 on a critical. So there's that. However, his new third weapon, his mount, or now it's called bare hands because it's literally a bear. I don't know why you would have a mount weapon without. Anyway, so it's called bare hands. And this is a mat 8, ranged 1, power 14. And the abilities on this weapon is knockdown, which is great. But then it has trash. Now, trash gains an additional die on damage rolls with the weapon against knockdown targets, and this thing automatically knocks them down, so it automatically gets boosted damage die on that, and then, or not boosted, but an additional damage die, so you can boost on top. So you could potentially get a power 14 with 4 dice on it if you want to spend your very little fury on that. So yeah, that's unsettling. His feat is exactly the same. While in Borka's control range, models gain stealth. And when an enemy model without resistance to cold, make a melee attack during their combat action, the enemy models become stationary for 1 round. So I'm curious if that might be a typo. While in Borka's control range, models gain stealth, because I believe that should be friendly models gain stealth. Unless it just means everybody gains stealth, and then that would be a very early thing to set up before you even get close to your enemy. But that I'm not sure if that's a typo or not, and you'll probably check on that later, or you can send privateerpress a request on the app to clarify that. Anyway, his spell list is changed slightly, so he no longer has battle charge that gave counter charge, because they removed kind of counter charge in Mark IV because they didn't want out of activation charges, because that created a lot of messiness. So that's been replaced with boundless charge, which gives a model the ability to charge without spending focus, and then they gain an additional +2 speed and pathfinder to that charge. So gives them some maneuverability and a lot more range. And then he has frostbite. Frostbite replaced frost hammer. It's the same thing. It's still a spray 8, power 12 on critical. It does cold damage, and on the critical hit, it freezes the target, or targets, depending on how many you get in the spray. And then we have Snow Shroud. Friendly models gain concealment while within the spellcaster's control range. So always having concealment is good. So is this guy scary? Yes, he is. And his ability to go up against cold or other enemies that use cold, such as Kadoran spellcasters, makes him a terrifying warlock to pick up. So yeah, I recommend him for anybody who enjoys a good just giving people a thrashing, because he can really pull out the beatings in melee. He is definitely not a behind front lines warcaster. He is on the front lines warcaster. So get him up there, get him doing what he does best.